Hello, I'm Matt Lucas, and this is
Chang.
Thanks for coming on today. So today I wanted to go over some Thai style hand wraps or wrapping hands out here in Thailand. It's definitely something that most trainers should know and fighters as well. As for myself, I've cornered and wrapped people's hands at Raja Demnen, Lumpini, Max Muay Thai. I've cornered Angela at entertainment shows. First, we'll look at our supplies. So supplies out here are pretty easy. Gauze, medical tape. Depending on the person's hand size, you might need more than two. Angela has small hands, so usually it will probably take less than one roll for her per hand. The other thing I usually have is a small pair of scissors because I'm lazy about ripping off the hand wrap. And then, of course, it's always really good to have a towel. It just makes things a little nicer when when the fighter has their hands placed on something. Obviously, in upcountry shows, you might have your hands on a water cooler. That's happened with me.
Yeah, it's happened with me, or over just a book bag.
Yeah, and just having a towel is nice. At more legit shows, it's a bit more of a setup like this. Lumpini actually has a bench and a bar for people to wrap hands. So usually, the first thing I do when I have the fighter at the stadium is I wrap their hands first. That way we have it done and they're ready, more or less. And it takes, 15 to 20 minutes per hand. Some people are obviously faster, some people are slower, but you definitely need to factor that in. And by doing it first, like right off the bat, they're ready for the fight. You don't have as much anxiety and you don't have to rush as much. And it's very, very important to get to fights on time. That way you don't have pre-fight anxiety, rushing around, being crazy, doing things. So Angela, put your hands on here. So we'll start with the left hand, usually, right. Oh, so that's a good thing to know, which hand is which. Usually I will start with a light massage. Again, I don't feel it's that important, but it does. It helps the fighter feel a little more comfortable, and also it relaxes them a little. So generally, rub the back of the hand. Usually, I use a lot of thumb pressure. Rub the individual fingers, pull them out. It's a light massage. Obviously, some fighters like harder massages. Some people don't like it. How do you like your hand massages? Do you even like getting hand massage?
I do, because when you get your hands wrapped, you have to kind of stay still for a very long time. So your hands, your fingers, all those joints get pretty stiff. So the massage is like a nice prelude before all of that.
Yeah. Definitely focus a little bit on the wrists. You can do both sides if you want. Again, in general, I tend not to do that long of massages for anything. It's just me. Other people I know, they like it better. So her hand has been massaged. She's ready for the first wrap. One of the primary things that you want to do and remember is when you have the wrap open. Okay, so one of the biggest things about wrapping hands is actually tearing the tape. When you tear the tape, you want to tear it right at the end where the tape is coming off the roll. It just tears easier. If I'm trying to tear it here, it's going to be a lot harder. I can still tear it, but different tape is also a different thickness, and some are thicker than others. A lot of times as the roll goes down, it gets harder to tear as well. So first make a fist. So I'm sorry, open up. So the first thing I do is I usually secure the thumb. So again, there's different ways that people do this. I generally focus a lot on wrist stabilization. I sort of worry about people's wrists breaking sometimes. Again, it's one of those things where you want to talk to your fighter as well. Angela, like, how do you like your hands wrapped in general?
I definitely like wrist support. I do think that sometimes Thai trainers don't wrap the wrist a lot. During hard punches and punches that are safe for you, wrist support is definitely important.
So what I do normally is I secure the wrist, the thumb twice, and I just do 3 laps around the wrist. Okay, Angela, make a fist. So now we are doing a long wrap from the wrist across the knuckles and then back down to the wrist and tear. Okay, and usually when I am doing this, I'm looking to make sure that the tape is always lined up, that it looks nice, you know, because there, at least for me, there's a little bit of an aesthetic element to it as well. So, and you know, again, some people have larger hands, some people have smaller ones. So, you know, 2 wraps, usually it's 2 or 3 around here is good. And then we support the back of the hand as well. Supporting the back of the hand is also very important to prevent breaks. This part of the hand is pretty fragile as well. So now we have our base level. So the next thing that we're going to do is actually the infamous like knuckle building on the knuckles. So what you'll see a lot of times is Thais will do. There's a few different ways of doing this. They basically make cigars of the tape. So they'll line up maybe 2 or 3 pieces of tape and roll it together and then place it on the knuckle like so. So there's a couple different ways to do this. I generally do 3 thick pieces and then some smaller ones. So I'll show a smaller one. So a smaller one is just 1 single piece of tape. But like that. Okay. Or some people will do a very long piece. And they wind it up. So the sticky part is on the outside the entire time. Okay, and then it's layered back and forth. Oh, I forgot to do the other thing. Oh well, it's okay. So again, this is something that, you know, a little bit of it is the trainer's preference, a little bit of it is the fighter's as well. Okay, so, you know, this is a bit like of a hodgepodge mishmash of things, but you can already see the knuckle is definitely built up. You don't want just the knuckle built up, you do want some stabilization behind the knuckle as well. So this is why I actually like doing 3 big ones to cover the knuckles, and then a few small ones to brace the larger ones and or fill in the gaps. So so that one is sort of filling in the gap and just making sure that large mound there is a little more stabilized. Okay, so we have Angela's basic hand wrap, the tape down. Next we're going to do the gauze. Of course, like I said before, you sort of open it, you loosen it up. So there's a few different ways of doing this. Again, I sort of like doing the wrist first, but sometimes people will make a bit of padding and put it across the knuckles and then move down. I also actually use a little bit of tape to secure this initial part down, just because I like to, it's a little easier. So this is a good part to remind the fighter that it's their hand and you don't know how tight or how loose it should be. Generally though, you want it to be firm and snug on the hand. Sometimes if it's too tight, it will cut off the circulation in the hand. Have you had that happen to you before?
Yeah.
I've definitely had that happen to me. So it's important that the fighter tells you, oh, it's too tight, because it's easier to, okay, loosen it up from here than to have the whole thing done and loosen it. So just starting off, when you're doing this, you also want to keep the roll pretty close to this, to where you've wrapped. That way it's not loose around the hand. So I'll do a couple things, wraps around the wrist and then the thumb. Open. Okay, close. So open, close, and you'll want to tell the fighter to open and close their hands, because your fist does get too tight. Oh, see, too tight. Better? Okay. So the hand expands and contracts as you open it and close it. So now going to the knuckles. So open. So open. I turn it and come back around. Close. Turn it. Come back around the knuckles. Open. Close. Open. Close. Open. Close. Okay, and then back around the wrist. And you know, again, it primarily depends on the fighter. You definitely want to build a nice secure cast around the hand. Some fighters are going to want more support along the wrist. Some like more on their knuckles. So open, close. So one of the reasons why I am turning this as well is that way it's a little more snug and stays where it is. Open, close, open, close, and back around the wrists. So I can see I'm getting towards the end of my wrap. So I will secure the wrist a little more, then go back up top, open, flip the hand, and then I will, you know, obviously depending on how much tape or gauze you have, you can rip the excess and you tuck it into the hand here. Okay, you can tie it off if you want, or tuck it in, whatever is easiest for you. Next thing you will do is you put a line of tape right across the hand. That way this extra gauze doesn't fly off, doesn't become a problem. Okay, so you have this side done. So now what you do actually is you're going to pull it back a bit. So you will take some long strips and you'll rip them in half. Usually you stick them on the back of the chair just for that way you can find them. Okay, you need 3 strips. but generally you'll make more. Okay, so then I put this here and I wrap it around the bottom. That way it's pulled in tight around this bridge here. I flip the hand over, tight, tight, tight. And I'm looking to really secure this piece down, okay? Open. So tape into the knuckles, securing this bridge. Tight, tight, tight. Putting the tape to the back of the hand. Secure this bridge. Turn. Tight, tight, tight. Okay, so now we have the gauze down. It's secured. So we're going to put a final layer of tape on the hand. So it's basically a mirror of our original wrap, our original layer. So open. So again, we start with the thumb. Go to the wrist. I generally do about 3 wraps around the wrist. But open. 2, 3. But okay, fist. So now I'm going to do this layer up top. Sometimes you might want to do it before the thumb and wrist, just to make sure that it's secure, especially if this back tape isn't staying in place. Some people's hands are actually sweaty as well, which may or may not move the tape around. Another good reason to have the towel there, just to dry off the hand. And also sometimes you may need to move the tape around as you are doing it. So again, just a nice firm layer of tape to make sure it's all pressed down. Then we're gonna do this final layer on the back. To secure everything, and she will be good to go with this hand. So a lot of times fighters will keep their hand wraps, especially this outer part, this cloth part, not only for the fit, but also because if you're fighting regularly, hand wraps can be expensive and add up in terms of money. So you'll often see Thai fighters in Isan and the countryside reuse hand wraps. So punch down. How does that feel, Angela?
Feels like a cast.
It feels like a cast, and that's what it should be. So obviously, it's basically doing the other hand is exactly the same. You secure the thumb, tape, the knuckles, back of the wrist. Then you build up the knuckle cast. You cover it, gauze, and then a final tape cast.